viewers, I'm Pia and you're watching Gulf Today on NewsX World, and here are the headlines. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu will urgently convene ministers to hold attackers in the West Bank accountable. Meanwhile, Israeli Defense Minister Katz has announced new funding to curb violence. Recent incidents include Israelis torching homes and vehicles in Jabba and Sair. US President Donald Trump has stated that he plans to approve Saudi Arabia's request to buy up to 48 US-made F-35 fighter jets, a potential multi-billion-dollar deal ahead of Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman's visit to Washington. Donald Trump has celebrated the UN Security Council's vote backing his Gaza peace plan with 13 nations in favor and no vetoes. The plan calls for a board of peace with global leaders and international peacekeeping force to stabilize Gaza. Meanwhile, Hamas has stated that all resistance against Israel is legitimate. It is refusing to disarm. It has criticized the UN resolution, claiming an international force would compromise Gaza's neutrality and impose trusteeship, falling short of Palestinian rights and demands. Iraqi Prime Minister Mohammad Shia al-Sudani's bloc has won 46 of 329 seats in Iraq's election, forming a government. Could take months due to US and Iranian influence and powerful armed groups. Meanwhile, other top parties include Maliki's State of Law, Taqadum and the KDP. US President Donald Trump has called on House Republicans to support releasing the Jeffrey Epstein files, reversing his previous opposition. The House is expected to vote on making the documents public, which could include records on Epstein, Ghislaine Maxwell and others. A Russian missile strike has killed one in Kharkiv's Berestyn and has wounded at least 9. Meanwhile, Russia says its air defenses shot down 31 Ukrainian drones overnight. In Donetsk, Ukrainian attacks hit 2 power plants, causing widespread outages. Well, viewers, those are the headlines and our top focus. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has stated that he will urgently convene a meeting of his cabinet ministers to ensure Israelis behind the latest attacks against Palestinians in the West Bank are brought to justice. In a post on X, Netanyahu has called on authorities to deal with the rioters in accordance with the law. Defense Minister Israel Katz, in a separate statement, has emphasized that the Israeli government in the coming weeks would approve a landmark decision to allocate resources and funding that he expected would have a significant impact addressing the violence. This comes as homes and vehicles have been torched in Jabba, which is a Palestinian village near Bethlehem, after an earlier attack on property and civilians in the village of Sair. Israel has been under mounting international pressure to curb these attacks on Palestinians in the West Bank. With us on the broadcast is Sasha Machta, political commentator, joining us from Jerusalem. Thank you so much for taking our time and speaking to us on NewsX World. We've been seeing the spate of attacks taking place. Houses have been torched, civilians have been attacked as well. Netanyahu now coming down, vowing to crack down on violence in the West Bank. What more can we expect from the Israeli government as far as these measures are concerned?
So yeah, the images coming out of the West Bank are, first of all, absolutely shocking. Definitely not representative of most of the 500,000 Israelis living in West Bank, Judea and Samaria. But these images have been disgusting all Israelis. So the reports coming out of Israel are that there are at least around 200 young extremists, violent extremists that have been carrying out these activities, where around 70 are the most extreme. And of course, it's been a problem that's been increasing in the past months. There are several measures that will be taken. It still hasn't been handled in a proper way. It hasn't been taken seriously, but in the past weeks we've seen more and more high-profile politicians and army officials come out against this, because Israelis understand that first and foremost these young and violent extremists are harming Israelis and innocent Palestinians, of course, but the damage that they're causing to us is very, very severe. So it needs to be handled accordingly. My hope is that the administrative detention that was previously removed will be brought back. That way, these 200 or more could be stopped before they take action. But since it's not one organized group, it's more individual acts of a few or of one crazy person that it might be hard to locate them as one group. So what's going to happen is we're going to see more efforts by the army to crack down, probably putting soldiers in areas with friction and actually dedicate some resources to this, which hasn't been done in the past. But the problem is great, and we all recognize it. Israelis recognize it, and the settlement leaders recognize it. Actually, the other day, we saw the leader Yossi Dagan come out against these extremists, and my hope is that this is a phenomenon that we won't see anymore and that proper measurements will be taken.
Absolutely. Requesting you to stay on with us as we track further developments. We're now learning that an Israeli government spokeswoman has stated that Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has made it clear that Palestinians from Gaza should be allowed to leave the territory and return to it freely. Shosha Bedrosian has made these comments during a briefing with foreign journalists in Jerusalem. Listen in.
South Africa's government has raised concerns about the arrival of a plane load of Palestinians from Gaza, with officials there saying the matter was under investigation. Steve, I'm reading the remaining response and question that you have here, specifically talking about Palestinians ending up in South Africa. I don't have much I can share with you on that, but the Prime Minister has made it clear that if Palestinians want to leave, they should be allowed to leave the Gaza Strip. And if they want to come back to the Gaza Strip, they should also be allowed to come back.
Earlier, South Africa's Foreign Affairs Minister Ronald Lamola had stated that the government is investigating the arrival of a plane carrying Palestinians, calling the circumstances suspicious. Authorities granted entry to the 130 passengers who arrived without travel papers. In other news, US President Donald Trump has hailed the UN Security Council's recent vote in favor of his proposed Gaza peace plan, describing it as a milestone that will lead to further peace all over the world. In a post on Truth Social, Trump has celebrated the vote, which saw 13 member nations backing the US drafted resolution, while Russia and China abstained but did not veto. Notably, there were, as I mentioned, no vetoes, marking a rare moment of unanimous support in the Council. Take a look.
The result of the voting is as follows: 13 votes in favor, 0 votes against, 2 abstentions. The draft resolution has been adopted as Resolution 2803.
The plan includes the establishment of a board of peace, which Trump has described in a speech in Washington as one of the most significant initiatives ever undertaken by the United Nations. He's emphasized that the board would include not only himself, but also leaders from very important and respected nations. Take a look.
The Board of Peace, and it's going to be comprised of myself and leaders of other very important nations and very respected nations, and it's going to be something I think is going to be very important. It was just approved. It was just endorsed by the United Nations. It was pretty great. It's a big thing. I think it's one of the most important things the United Nations will ever do, actually.
The resolution also calls for the deployment of an international peacekeeping force in Gaza, a move aimed at stabilizing the region. Now, following the vote, the US has hailed this decision as historic and constructive, signaling a shift towards greater international cooperation in addressing the long-standing conflict. With us on the broadcast is Mr. Sasha Machta. What's interesting is that there was near unanimous assent to this particular decision. 13 ayes, 2 abstentions, and no vetoes from Russia or China for that matter. How significant then is this particular decision, and how do you read into the numbers specifically as far as this vote is concerned?
So first, this is an incredible success of the Trump administration, and of course, Donald Trump deserves credit for getting basically all the nations of the world to agree, or in the case of Russia and China, to abstain to this plan. If we look at the situation a little bit over a year ago or a few months ago, this was never in sight. We would never have imagined that the nations of the world would come together in the UN, a place that had spewed so much hate towards the state of Israel, to actually vote on a resolution that is creating an international cooperation, an international stabilization force to actually come in and disarm Hamas. So Trump's ability to get these nations, including Arab moderate nations, to agree to Hamas disarmament is an incredible success. The question that remains is, will the ISF that enters Gaza, will they be willing to fight and disarm Hamas? This is the question that's been coming up a lot in the past few weeks, as Jordanian leader has already said that it's not going to be an international stabilization force, it's going to be a peacekeeping force. So does that mean that they are only going to enter once Hamas is disarmed? And if so, what leverage does Trump have over Hamas for them to disarm? Hamas has already rejected the plan. They've been the only party to reject the plan. Of course, this plan would have essentially ended the suffering of the people of Gaza and allowed for a better future to be built. But as always, Hamas remains the key obstacle to this. So the ISF yesterday got an endorsement by the nations of the world. The vote was practically an endorsement of the Trump plan and kind of a certificate of approval to turn it from policy, from paper into action. It's getting the endorsement of the UN. So now we'll see, hopefully, nations such as Indonesia, hopefully Emiratis, Saudis, and regional players, not Qatar and Turkey, of course, sending troops into Gaza. Maybe this will be only in the yellow side of Gaza for now, because the US has been floating this possibility of two Gazas, one in the Israeli yellow side. Of course, Israel will retire slowly from that territory, but under the IDF-controlled yellow line, and then where Hamas still remains, their last stronghold in the red side. So for sure, we're going to see in the next weeks, hopefully, troops entering the yellow side and actually helping Israel in disarming or removing the last of Hamas's facilities on the yellow side, but on the red side, that's going to be more complicated. So that's going to be a question and something to keep an eye out. How and what leverage is going to be used to disarm Hamas on the red side? And will the peacekeeping force, will the ISF be willing to actually confront Hamas fully, or just serve as a peacekeeping force?
Absolutely. Requesting you to stay on with us. You, of course, addressed a very crucial point. I'd like to expand on that a little bit. Hamas has, in fact, rejected the UN Security Council's recent Gaza resolution. Hamas has insisted that resistance against Israel is legitimate. It has rejected calls to disarm. It has criticized the proposed deployment of an international peacekeeping force, claiming that it undermines the neutrality and sides with Israel. Additionally, Hamas has described the resolution as an imposition of international trusteeship on Gaza, and they've stated that this move is opposed by Palestinians and local factions, asserting that it fails to address Palestinian rights and demands. Still with us on the broadcast is Mr. Sasha Machta. You have, of course, addressed this, but what's also interesting is that we've also recently seen a statement by the UAE. It had ruled out joining the stabilization force, although it does continue to back these peace efforts. How do you analyze the UAE's position? Of course, the UAE is a signatory to the Abraham Accords. Could this then be some sort of signal that it's sending to Israel and the Arab nations at large?
I think the signal that the UAE is sending is that they want to have no role in sending troops as long as Hamas is still present in Gaza. The UAE, more than anyone, except maybe the Saudis, has their own experience with the Muslim Brotherhood. They have experience with derooting and with de-radicalizing this horrible ideology from their society. And I think that given their knowledge and understanding of these risks and implications of dealing with the Muslim Brotherhood, they don't want to send troops on the ground to actually confront Hamas, which is totally legitimate. It's understandable, and Israel, more than anyone, also understands that the concerns that the UAE might have with this. So, of course, it's our hope that the UAE will send troops because this is our strongest ally and partner in the region, but it's understandable. That being said, we see that the UAE will have a tremendous role to play in terms of the de-radicalization of the Gaza Strip. If we thought Hamas was the only problem, it's not. It's also the ideology that Hamas has been teaching and injecting in the youth of Gaza, and the UAE actually has experience with de-radicalization. So we hope that they're gonna be a key player in the de-radicalization of the Gaza Strip, which will allow for a better future of coexistence between Israel and Gazans.
All right, with that said, I'd like to thank you for taking out time, of course, sharing your perspective and analysis with us on NewsX World today. On that note, viewers, we're shifting focus to what's taking place in Iraq. Prime Minister Mohammad Shia al-Sudani's bloc has won the most seats in Iraq's parliamentary election. Final results, of course, showcase that he has taken about 46 of 329 seats. But forming a new government could still take months, especially amidst political wrangling. Meanwhile, the Taqadam party has won 27 seats. Former Prime Minister Nouri al-Malaki's state of law group secured 29, and the Kurdistan Democratic Party took 26. Overall, voter turnout reached just over 56%. Shiite ruling alliance parties say that they remain the largest bloc and plan to nominate a prime minister for the next phase. Sudani is seeking a second term. He presents himself as a reformer aiming to stabilize Iraq after years of unrest. So with us on the broadcast is Mr. Peter Baum, editor of the Weekly Blitz, joining us from London. Thank you so much for taking out time and speaking to us on NewsX World today. Crucial results of a very important election in Iraq. But of course, we do know that al-Sudani's bloc, his party has taken 46 of 329 seats, and therefore he does face the challenge of forming a coalition. Some analysts say that a stable government formation could perhaps take a few weeks or even months for that matter. He does position himself as a reformist, so bringing different parties to his line is a major challenge as well. How long do you foresee this entire process to take?
Yeah, there are three major difficulties facing Sudani and his ability to form a coalition government. The first one is how politically astute he is in being able to bring those other parties, the number of seats that you've just mentioned, together within that coalition. I think those representing the Kurdish bloc will certainly join with him, and the Sunni bloc represented by the former Prime Minister and another party may have more difficulty with that, but nevertheless the main hurdle for him will be his political astuteness in bringing those blocs together to form a coalition. Now, if he can do that, he then faces two major challenges. The first one being the Shia cleric party of the Sadrist party, who boycotted the elections, and as you know, they are very much aligned with the influence of Iran.
Yes.
Now, they could cause havoc, given that they are form a very strong bloc of voters within Iraq itself, and at the moment they have been eerily silent on commenting on the elections. They've boycotted, we know, and it's difficult to know what they are going to do should a coalition seem to have been formed. That's the second hurdle. The third hurdle is going to be very difficult for him, and that's there are a number of Iraqi militias of all different shapes and forms, independent militias funded by various players within the region, funded by Turkey, funded by the Emiratis, funded by Qatar, funded by Iran, and undoubtedly some funded by the United States, who has a presence in the region. So those three hurdles for anyone trying to form a coalition are going to be very difficult to cross, and hence the reason why many analysts are suggesting that it may take weeks, if not months, if at all, to form a coalition that has the credibility and has the support to govern Iraq on the basis of the results of the election that we've just witnessed.
Mm-hmm. Indeed, and this election, the run-up to this election has witnessed several scandals, including a revelation on the 19th of August regarding a network of spies operating within the Prime Minister's office. Meanwhile, there was a scandal as well involving the embezzlement of around $2.5 billion in public funds. All of these came in the run-up to the elections, yet we do see the 56% voter turnout and the fact that al-Sudani's party has got the maximum amount of seats. Since you mentioned Iran, taking all of this into context, how can a fragmented parliament, one that has witnessed quite a lot of tensions in the run-up to the polls, sort of shape Iraq's ability to address these very real security concerns regarding extremism, regarding Iranian influence, and curb potential sort of efforts to create unrest within Iraq?
Yeah, well, okay, so the first question was regarding the ability to form a coalition, and I said that there were three major hurdles which I've outlined. Of course, the fourth major one is the, as you've quietly mentioned, the number of scandals leading up to the election, financial scandals, etc. Now, it will have to be up to the political astuteness of the potential Prime Minister and his cabinet to negotiate their way round those scandals. We know that Iraq has been pillaged by stealing funds from, it's an oil-rich country, we know that. And we also know that the corruption within Iraq, whether it's from the days of pre-Saddam, Saddam or post-Saddam, has been just a mess full of whichever government's in charge, pillaging the country of its wealth, and some Iraqi individuals, politicians and army generals being made very, very wealthy. So the key, the fourth hurdle, if you like, is the ability of the incoming Prime Minister to be able to negotiate his way around these scandals, some of which indeed have affected some of his closest friends, I'm sure, and those in power in other parties. And if he can find a way to negotiate a compromise, maybe hanging out to dry some individuals who are clearly responsible for the wealth pillage of Iraq, then they still have a chance. But that's why so many analysts, including myself, are suggesting that it will take weeks, if not months, to form this coalition together, because there are some huge hurdles for this incoming administration to cross over.
Indeed, so with that, I'd like to thank you for taking out time, of course, putting all of that into perspective for our viewers. On that note, we're shifting focus to news coming in. Now, according to reports, 11 people have been detained in connection with the deaths of 4 members of the same family from suspected poisoning in Istanbul. A Turkish-German woman, her husband, and their 2 children who were on a holiday from Germany fell ill last week after eating several popular street food dishes in Istanbul. They were taken to hospital, but the 2 children died the very next day. Their mother passed away 2 days later. Istanbul prosecutors opened an investigation, initially focusing on suspected food poisoning. But evidence has since emerged that the family may have been exposed to pesticides in the hotel where they were staying. Among those detained are 5 food sellers, the hotel's owner and 2 staff, and 3 people from the pest control company. Well, viewers, due to paucity of time, it's a wrap on Gulf Today.